problem. So we've gone live on Facebook, which is perfect. So we'll start that in 1 sec. Now I've just got to try and add you. Is it giving you a chance, Dr. Terry, to, does it say request to join the video on your end?
Well, it says we're having trouble loading the live video on my end.
Oh, really?
Yes.
See,
it says you're live.
Other people, send me can you send a request?
I'll try and send a request again.
Okay. Because other people here can send requests. If it doesn't go live, oh, okay, so you've joined, which is perfect. But it's not letting me. Oh, what about if I go here? Okay, what? Yeah, okay, hang on. Now I'm adding you.
Okay.
Waiting. So it should come up.
Go live. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to have some feedback. Okay. Now I've got my headset on, so I was hoping that would take care of it.
There's a little bit of an echo.
Let's see if I can. Is that better?
Hang on. I've got all my sound off. Thanks to everyone that's joined us. I think that's better.
I don't know that I know how to turn my audio off on my phone.
Down, can you turn all the volume down? So down.
It's already down. It's already down. I could turn it to do not disturb.
Yeah, okay, try that.
I'll try that. Okay, do you still hear me?
A little bit, but it's not too bad.
I don't know that the people on Instagram will hear me anymore, but...
No, somehow it does. I'm not sure how that works, but somehow it does still hear you. Let's just give it a go.
Okay.
So,
I will move a little further back to get a little further from my phone. Maybe that'll help.
I'm so excited that you joined us today here in New Zealand while you're working from home in the States. Like, this is one amazing benefit of us and technology being able to go across the world.
Yes, and it's Thursday where I am. And what time is it where you are?
So it's Good Friday, so it's Friday morning, 9 a.m.
It is 4 o'clock Thursday evening, and I have dinner in the oven, slowly roasting.
What are you cooking for dinner?
Well, we have bison meatballs that I've ground up with some mushrooms for everything they do with the natural killer cells for my immune cells. And then we have grated yams, onions, cabbage, medley on the bottom, and a lot of oregano in the bison.
Is there anything beeping on your end, Dr. Terry? There's some sort of weird...
There is, and I don't know why that is. I think it's feedback from my phone. And so maybe this is just not going to work with Instagram and Be Live at the same time.
We can turn it off if we need to.
I'll turn off the IG. So I turned off my IG.
Okay, yeah, there's no feedback now. That's better.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Dr. Terry, I'm super excited that you're doing this today because
certainly you don't have it.
What?
I left now because I was still somehow coming through my phone. I'm clearly still somewhat Instagram impaired.
You have the most amazing story that lots of people don't actually know your personal story and your health journey. They know you as Dr. Terry Wahls, MS doctor, medical doctor. And that was, to be honest, when I first studied nutrition and got into this world, that's how I knew you, as well as this amazing medical doctor that had done this amazing research and was really paving the way for her cause, getting research really at the leading end of what you're doing with nutrition, therapeutic, things for helping people with MS. But it wasn't until I had the pleasure of hearing you speak and also staying with you where I was like, oh my gosh, Terry, like your personal health story is amazing. And more people need to understand kind of not the struggle in a bad way, but very much like what you went through and what it was. Like tell us from the beginning, like this was a long time coming.
You know, so I was in medical school when these electrical face pains first started happening, and they gradually became more frequent, more severe. 20 years later, I developed weakness in my left leg and was evaluated, found to have multiple sclerosis.
Hang on, stop this for a second. So people don't realize, like my assistant, when she was writing this up about you, was like, her health journey was 27 years. Did you make a typo? Do you mean 27 months? And I was like, no, 27 years. So that was 20 years, Terry.
20 years of gradually worsening pain. 7 years into it, I had an episode of dim vision in my left eye. That went away. Then, 13 years later, I developed weakness in my left leg and was evaluated, found to have multiple sclerosis. And I'm an academic internal medicine doc, so I wanted to treat my disease very aggressively. I sought out the best people in the country, took the newest drugs, and still went steadily downhill. I'd been following a low-fat vegetarian diet, thinking that was the best thing that I could be doing. And I'd done that for almost 20 years already. And my Cleveland Clinic doctors told me about the work of Lauren Cordain. I read his papers, his books, and after a lot of prayer and meditation, decided to go back to eating meat. So I gave up all grain, all legumes, all dairy. And unfortunately, I continued to go downhill. So I'm taking more potent drugs, including these new biologic drugs. And for the next 3 years, I'm in a tilt-recline wheelchair. My face pains are getting more severe. I begin having trouble with brain fog. By the summer of 2007, I'm so weak I cannot sit up in a regular chair. My face pain is increasingly severe. And fortunately for me, that's when I discovered the Institute for Functional Medicine. I take their course protection. I have a longer list of supplements, which I start adding. Not a lot changes, but then I have a really big aha. Like, what if I design my diet in a specific way to maximize these nutrients in the food that I'm eating? And so it's a few more months of research, and I start this new way of eating January 26, 2007. Mm-hmm. And within 3 months, my brain fog is gone. My fatigue is gone. My face pain, which had been increasingly horrific, is gone. And I'm beginning to walk again using walking sticks. And then in 6 months, and this is really quite remarkable, I get on my bike for the first time in 6 years, and we pedal around the block. My kids are crying. My wife is crying. I'm crying. And clearly that changes how I think about disease and health. In 6 more months, my wife comes across and registers us for the Courage Ride, which is an 18.5-mile bike ride. Again, as I finish that ride, my son's crying, my daughter's crying, my wife's crying, and I'm crying. And I really, how I'm thinking about disease and health is transformed. Ultimately, how I practice medicine is transformed. And of course, ultimately, the research that I do is transformed.
So what was the biggest transformation? What did you now believe about disease and health? Like, what was the difference? What was going through you?
What is interesting is as I get more fired up about the power of food and diet and lifestyle, I'm talking to my patients about what are they eating, what are they doing, and I'm spending more time. Like, we gotta fix your diet. This is really important. That we just get a step counter and start recording how many steps you take every day. And what I discovered was, actually I was very effective at getting patients to make these big radical changes on their diet. I'm teaching my residents all about biochemistry and physiology. They think I'm teaching them about the newest drugs, and I'm talking broccoli and curcumin and berries. And I'm getting my residents fired up about diet and lifestyle because they see me model how it is possible to get people to change their diet and lifestyle. And I push my residents, like, you're not going to use diet and lifestyle with your patients unless you're doing that for yourself.
Totally.
So I'm getting my residents fired up about vegetables and fired up about spices.
And Terry, we always tease you because you get so many people excited. Everyone tunes in to watch your live videos of you in your garden or you eating your dinner. Like, you get thousands and thousands and thousands of people because you've made us all excited that we can do this at home and we have the power to change our health.
And it doesn't have to be that hard. When I had this transformation, and I'm fired up about functional medicine, and I learned all this functional medicine testing. But in the VA, very limited testing. And when I first started doing this, I could just do primary care types of tests. Or in my traumatic brain injury clinic, no test whatsoever. And I just had 20 minutes twice a year. What I discovered was 20 minutes twice a year was plenty. That in that short time, with inspiration and education and a message that resonates with the vet, we could begin the process of these huge fundamental shifts that would transform their lives. And that success led to the VA and say, get primary care because we want you to have your own clinic. And then that set me down a different path, which really was quite wonderful because now I could have as much time as I wanted, and I could order a few tests. It was still pretty basic, CBC, glucose, lipids, vitamin D, homocysteine. That was it. That was all that I ever ordered.
And that kind of mainstream medical labs, just for people listening.
Those are ordinary, easy labs to get.
Yeah, very easy. Like, you just go to your local doctor, even in New Zealand, and your doctor will order those labs for you. So that's what you started off working with.
And that's what we did. The other thing that we did was, inspire the people with my story, inspire them with stories of other veterans who we helped recover. And then I'd explain the mechanisms by which diet and lifestyle could be so powerful through epigenetics, through the microbiome, through toxin exposure. And then we'd have metaphors that they could relate to as farmers or as mechanics or as a sports coach or as a teacher. And then I'd put out a question. So if you're ready to commit 100% all in on gluten-free, dairy-free, egg-free, lots of vegetables, and have a plan for meat eaters and vegetarians, you can come work in our clinic. If that sounds too hard, but you want a little bit on your diet, I'll send you to the dietitian, and they'll work with you. If this sounds just like you're not ready for this, you just want to work with your primary care doc, with your usual drugs, that's fine. We'll send you back to them and ask for another consult when you're interested in the change. So I don't argue with my patients. I inspire them and say, here's the possibilities. When you're ready to work, you can come work with me. But if you're not ready to work, we won't let you stay in the clinic because we ended up with a very long waiting list very quickly because we had such remarkable success.
I could only imagine. And so, Dr. Terry, tell us, when you first started, so you transitioned from your long list of supplements that you were on and you moved to food those first 3 to 6 months. What were sort of some of the foods for you? And I know it's your personal journey and it's different with your patients and stuff, but what are some of the key things that you really changed or you added into your diet?
So I radically ramped up my greens. So lots of kale, collards, Swiss chard, parsley. So I'm having a big plate full of greens every day. And actually, in the beginning, it was 2 platefuls of greens. Lots of garlic, onions, mushrooms, cabbage family stuff. And then things that were deeply colored, beets, carrots, berries. And I was having liver once a week. It was organic liver, but
yeah. Being a vegetarian and vegan, having liver once a week would have been a really big deal.
Well, but keep in mind, I've been a vegetarian 20 years. In 2002, I went back to eating meat. I continued to decline for 4 more years. And then, actually, I started the paleo diet in 2003. But for the next 4 years, I continued to decline, although I was still eating meat, no grain, no legumes, no dairy. But there was not a lot of guidance on what to be eating. And I'd been adding various vitamins and supplements, including B vitamins, CoQ, creatine, carnitine. But I had a longer list of supplements. Didn't help a whole lot. But when I really emphasized the food, and the liver was big. Putting liver on my plate, like, wow, that was a big change. Now, I grew up eating liver, and that was something we had every Friday night. And if you complained, you got more. So, we need to not complain. But now I love making liver. We have a baked liver dish that is just spectacular. It's one of our favorite meals. Yeah, it is.
Okay. So tell us, even though when you were still declining, what motivated you? Like at that point, so you'd done your diet, your nutrition and stuff, so you weren't really taking mainstream drugs, or you were?
I was. Okay. I was taking mainstream drugs because I was going downhill very quickly, and I wanted to slow down my decline as well as I could. So before I entered medical school, I was an athlete. I did martial arts, taekwondo. I competed nationally, full contact fighting, free form fighting. And I had assumed that when I had my kids, I'd be teaching them how to be successful adults with martial arts, with athletics, with wilderness travel. But it was quickly becoming apparent that that was not going to be possible. That I still knew that having them be successful adults was really important to me. But I had to think very deeply about, okay, so what tools do I have to teach them how to be successful adults? As I could do less and less and less, I was like, okay, well, I can either give up and model that when life gets hard, you give up. Or I could get up and do my little simple workout every day and go to work every day and acknowledge that life is not fair, but you do the best you can anyway. My kids were very young when I was diagnosed, 8 and 5. Really? And so they got chores at a very early age that we depended on them to do. And so, my kids were pretty unhappy about having to do the dishwasher and do the laundry. And, they'd complain that none of their friends knew anything about dishwashers, or none of their friends knew nothing about laundry and laundry soap. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I can see why you're upset. That is so hard. But these are your chores, and this is what you have to do. And, it's really hard and difficult that I can't do those things, but I have MS. I can't. But I do go to work every day, and life's not fair. And so I go to work, and life's not fair, and you're going to do chores. And so my kids would stamp their feet and would inform me that they were sure I had arranged to have MS so I could lecture them about chores.
Children hilarious. I'm glad that even as their mom's declining and she's in bad health, kids will still be kids in terms of you did.
Yes.
So you can make them load the dishwasher.
And they're horrified that I tell that story now, but of course, when they were that young, that was very age-appropriate, self-centered stuff that all kids do.
So what was their journey like then? As they watched their mum decline, did they understand? Like, they were quite young, did they?
So it was pretty difficult. And, they tell me that they certainly went through periods where they were very embarrassed to have mom so disabled and then in a wheelchair and not doing well. And that was hard. And then, interesting enough, as I recovered and I began talking about the gift of having MS and what it taught me, that was really hard because, my kids felt like their lives were radically changed by my having MS, and what we could do as a family and what they could do individually were radically changed. So they were pretty unhappy that I could possibly say that there was any gift with all of this. A few more years, now that they're 28 and 25, almost 29, 26, now they're more willing to, I hear them talking about what they learned growing up in our family with chores, growing up with watching the fact that, I didn't give up. I just kept going on with life as best I could. That was very powerful for them. So now they've sort of come around to that. Yes, it wasn't what we asked, it wasn't what we wanted, but we did still learn a great deal from it. Actually, I think we have a lot to reflect on that with the COVID problem that we're all facing globally. None of us want this. No. I mean, it's really a huge loss and a burden for us, or at least the vast majority of us, unless you are a personal protective equipment maker. That's probably good for you, but otherwise we're all suffering. But we can either choose to be sort of helpless, hopeless, there's nothing I can do about it, and be into ever deepening despair, or I could sit back and think like, okay, what is there for me to learn individually? Yeah. What is there for me to learn in my family, in my tribe? And then, I sort of find a lot of comfort in thinking like, what is there for us to learn as a society? I've heard so many people saying, I never really cooked. I'm going to the kitchen and I'm sort of learning how to cook now. Well, that's a really good thing. And people are figuring out how to call and talk to their friends and extended family. So we're figuring out how we can still be connected, even if we aren't in the same room together. That's a good thing.
I 100% agree. And like, I've seen my clients that are mums and they're like, oh, like, how do we keep our children entertained all day? Like do the school stuff. And then they'll be like, and then I've still got to cook dinner. I've still got to do all these things. And I'm like, that becomes the children's entertainment. Like most mums that I find that I work with that are working and their mums as well, they need to get dinner over and done with in a hurry because they've got all these other things to go do. And I'm like, we've got to change our attitude now because we don't need to get dinner over and done with because where are we going? Are we going to our next Skype call or our next Zoom call? I'm like, this now becomes the entertainment. We have an opportunity now. The task is all of us prepping dinner together. You might want to be the final one doing it at the end. That's fine, whatever you want to do in your house. But what is the gift that we can do in terms of teaching the next generation how to eat, how to cook, how to look after themselves?
How to menu plan, how to realize that, okay, we really can't go to the grocery store all the time. As a matter of fact, they don't want us to go to the grocery store at all right now. So I got a few recipes that I like. I'll lay it out. I'll go to the cupboard. I'll go to the refrigerator, the freezer. I'll go in my yard. And if it's not in one of those locations, it's omitted in the recipe. I can substitute. So people are being forced to be more flexible about how we construct our food.
Yeah, and more creative.
It's much more creative. People ask me about on my Instagram about recipes all the time. And I'm like, and I give them, okay, here's the ingredients. They want to know like how much. I said, well, as much as you feel like. I really, it's so grateful that my mom taught me, because we had to be very resourceful on the farm, that you have the recipe for inspiration. Yes. To give you some sense of proportionality for the ingredients, but that you start, then you go to the cupboard and figure out what you have on hand and you improvise from there. 100%. That is such a vital skill that I see more people willing to embrace and understand.
But it's a great life skill. Like, this is what we get to teach our children while we're at home with them. That's just problem solving 101. That's life. None of us adults picked this. No children picked this right now. No child. We've all got to improvise. We're all problem solving right about now on what this looks like during this season.
So we can either say, nope, I have no responsibility. There's nothing I can do, and feel helpless, hopeless, and in despair. Or I can say, okay, well, what can I learn? How can I make this a little bit better for me and my family? And then those of us who are willing to learn and adapt will come out in vastly better shape than if we just said, well, there's nothing I can do, I'm screwed.
And that's back to your health story too. You could have, as you've 20 years where there's nothing I can do, I'm just going to take the drugs, I'm just going to slow down the deterioration. That was kind of your goal, to actually know there is something. I am empowered. I can start to look after. I can start to research. I can start to see what I can do for my body. I'm going to take ownership of this.
And so, I'm immensely grateful for my kids, because my kids kept me reading, thinking deeply, like, okay, I got to do everything that I possibly can. And that got me down the path of reading the basic science, adding supplements. Fortunately, I was continuing to search, and that's how I discovered the Institute for Functional Medicine and got down that path. Without my kids, I might not have had the resolve to stay with it. But fortunately, they were, and I was like, well, I got to keep doing all that I can.
So as you went down that path, when did you see a difference? Like, so you were still doing your supplements, you were doing your diet, but still you were still deteriorating, but slowing it down.
Yeah. So I, adopted the paleo diet. I was still going downhill. I added supplements. I slowed the speed of my decline. I discovered functional medicine, added more supplements. I maybe flattened my decline. Then I redesigned my paleo diet in a very specific way, based on what I learned with functional medicine and my own basic science. And within 3 months, my pain is gone, my fatigue is gone, my mental clarity is back, and I'm beginning to walk.
Wow.
That is breathtakingly fast. 3 months. So I can see this big change. And then in 6 months, I'm on my bike for the first time in 6 years, and I pedal around the block. And then in, actually it's about 11 months, I'm doing an 18.5 mile bike ride.
Wow.
No, I was tired. I was very tired at the end of the bike ride.
Of course. You did it.
I did it. And it's just stunning that I could do that.
And so coming from a medical background, being a traditional MD, wanting research, that's what MDs are. We want the research. You want the research. You want to know. You want the studies. You want the trials. How do you now navigate between that? Obviously, that's what you've been trained in, plus your own personal journey where you went out of the traditional medical doctrine and framework.
Fortunately, my chair of medicine at that time was a rheumatologist who saw how remarkable it was that I had this level of restoration. And he said, and I saw him, and he goes, oh, so I was on the new biologics. I said, no, I'm on no drugs whatsoever.
So you were on no drugs?
No disease-modifying drugs whatsoever. And so he said, okay, this is so important, Terry. You're going to get a case report written up. And so we did that. And then he called me back and said, now I want you to do a safety and feasibility study. And so I had to raise money, and so we were able to get the money raised for that and got that underway. And he was very helpful in getting me the mentors I needed because this was a different area of research that I was doing. So I needed a lot of support and guidance in developing that. But so Paul Rothman was key. And he was my chair of medicine, became the dean of medicine, who said, this is really important, got me the mentors, and helped launch this new research career. And because if I'm going to change the standard of care so other people can have access to this, I need to do the research and publish it in peer-reviewed journals.
Totally.
And here's the other thing that I do that is radically different than other researchers, is I tell the public what I'm doing and why. So I wrote my book. I put it out there.
You've done a new revision.
And here's the new version.
What's the difference between the two books?
So the new one has updates to my thinking on supplements, updates on the diet. We talk about histamines, FODMAPs, the elimination diet, who needs the elimination diet. We talk about the many ways you can get into ketosis. And by the way, we should mention that during COVID, I strongly urge people to not do ketosis during COVID because it's too much strain on your immune cells. Wait until we're through all of this, then go back into ketogenic. Then we talk about neurorehab, genetics, microbiome. We talk about all the research that I've done now, and it's published in peer-reviewed journals, and the fact that when I was doing my studies in 10, there was nobody doing dietary food-based intervention studies. I was it. Dr. Yetta doing some. Now we have more dietary plans studied. Ketogenic diets, Mediterranean diets, fasting drinking diets, calorie restrictions, the paleo diet. And so in the MS world, I think there are 15 dietary food-based intervention studies. I'm involved in 5 of those studies. We have a lot of experience, and we have shifted the whole station about diet in the neurological literature.
Totally.
It's very exciting.
It's really exciting. So on a day-to-day, because a lot of people wouldn't understand like how much I didn't until I was talking to you and really understood what the research is that you're doing in terms of like you have somebody working for you full like what does that look like in terms of because you're really the pioneer of really pushing these studies, wanting it like you said when you were first doing this, there wasn't anybody else really doing the studies.
Correct.
You want to bring it to mainstream so that you understand the system.
So the way research typically goes is you have a smart person who makes a very interesting clinical observation, then writes it up. That's the case report. Then they might have several cases. That's the case series. Then once you have that, now you have a rationale to do a safety and feasibility study. So that's what we did. And you do a single arm study to show, will people do this? And if they do it, do you hurt them? So we showed that nobody was hurt, and that the biggest problem was if you're overweight, you lost weight. So that's not too serious of a problem.
That's really hurting everybody.
And we had a very nice effect on fatigue and quality of life. So then we did a randomized controlled study. And again, we showed that people could implement it, it was safe, and we had a very nice effect on fatigue, quality of life, and motor function. Then we did another randomized study, this time including a ketogenic diet, and that paper was just accepted, so that's also very nice. And now we have a much larger study funded by the MS Society comparing the Wahls diet to a low-fat swank diet. All of the study visits are done, thank goodness. We got them all in just in the nick of time, really, before the COVID. So now we are cleaning the data and analyzing it. And I'm having my meeting with the MS Society next week. So we will hopefully be able to complete that analysis and be able to submit it for a meeting this fall or perhaps next spring. It sort of depends on how long it takes us to complete the analysis. So, and in the meantime, we're writing more grants for more studies. We have another study that we'll be doing comparing the Wahls Protocol, diet and lifestyle in newly diagnosed MS patients to using the therapeutic or the drugs. We're approved to do that study, but COVID came along, and so now we can't do in-person visits, so we're rewriting that study virtually, and so we're in the process of getting that back through our IRB. And we're writing grants to do analyses of all the biospecimens we have in our freezer. And we are writing more grants for other intervention studies and other observational studies. And that's what researchers do. We do studies and write grants.
Yeah, I was about to say that. So when you say grants, you're meaning you need to get funding from people.
Right, I have to pay my staff.
To pay for the studies to be completed.
Correct.
And would you say that's why a lot of studies don't happen, just because of the cost?
Oh, correct. The reason my studies are able to happen is because my protocol impacted the lives of some people with money. They called up the university and said, you know what? We see that Dr. Wahls has a research lab and a research fund we're going to donate. So that allowed me to do these several small pilot studies that let me get preliminary data that we could use to write for the larger grants with the MS Society. And so those early pilot fundings changed the trajectory of neurologic research because it showed that food-based dietary interventions could have a measurable impact. And it drove public interest in dietary research.
And so are we talking about like a couple of $1,000 or like I kind of
my little pilot studies that I did with doctoral students and student volunteers were $100,000, $300,000. So those are that's still a lot of money to raise. I mean, it'd be hard pressed for me to write out that check. So we need philanthropists to help us raise it. But we also have people who send us $25, $100, $1,000. So my funding comes from many, many, many people. In addition, once we have those preliminary data, then the grants that my team and I can write are much more competitive. And that's how I get the $1 million grants from the MS Society to do the study that I'm doing currently.
And Dr. Terry, like, what drove you to want to do this? Like, you could have gotten yourself better, written your books, you could have just seen clients one-on-one, seen them set up some sort of program. But what made you actually want to give back, basically, to the science, to the research, to that? Like,
well, actually, I got a lot. I took a huge amount of grief from this, from the neurology world, from the MS world, from my academic folks. They were really upset with me. And I just sort of shrug and say, you know what? I'll be very careful to disclose that this is based on my experience or my scientific rationale, that we don't yet have peer-reviewed, double-blind, crossover-controlled trials. But people can decide if vegetables feel pretty safe, if meditation feels pretty safe, if exercise feels pretty safe and low risk, then they could begin implementing that, working with their primary care team and their medical team. If they want to wait for those peer-reviewed, randomized, double-blind controlled trials, that's fine. I trust people will make good decisions. And the university was a little concerned that I was running things this way until we started getting all these donations to my research lab, and then the dean of the medical school suddenly I had an appointment with the dean. I was like, dear God, what have I done now? So I go in to see the dean, and I'm sort of trembling in my boots, like I'm going to be in trouble. And he just wants to hear what my story and my research, and like we've never had people cold call us to give money the way they are giving you money. And so that has really transformed me from this sort of unusual, eccentric oddity that's how people saw me back in 2007, 2008, to now this brilliant visionary. In fact, next week I'll be my research team will be presenting at the Internal Medicine Research Seminar, and that's just before I came on with you. I was working on my presentation. I signed out what part I would do, what part the other scientists in my lab will do, and making sure that we'd get through everything and have a half an hour for the Q&A, because that's always the most engaging part of these research presentations.
Yeah. Is that the part that you still really enjoy? Like, you obviously love doing the research, love doing the science, but it must be the interactions with the doctors. It's
intellectually really interesting, and I have this crazy idea that the only way forward is teaching people to create health.
Totally.
That's the only way to help the public through the COVID crisis and through this epidemic of chronic disease. You have to focus on creating health, not on treating disease. So I keep having this conversation with my treating clinicians that they're focusing on the wrong stuff. Quit focusing on treating disease, start focusing on treating health, creating health.
And it's a different mindset.
It's different mindsets, it's different skill set. As soon as you focus on creating health, what you discover is you have to watch the medication use very, very closely because people will need less of it. Their blood pressure will normalize, their blood sugars will improve, their pain will lessen, their mood will stabilize, and you likely have to keep cutting back on the medications.
100%.
So I get into these very vigorous debates now with my research colleagues, the same way I used to get in my debates with my clinician colleagues is, you're focusing on the wrong stuff. You're focusing on disease pathology. You need to be focusing on creating health.
Yeah.
That will restore disease pathology. That will regress disease pathology far more effectively than going at it pathway by pathway by pathway. If you go at it by restoring health, you'll be acting much more globally because this is all about health behaviors. And the epidemic of chronic disease isn't the epidemic of broken pathophysiology. It's the epidemic of the mismatch between our biologic evolution, what our genes expect, and how once we had gotten smart enough that we could cooperate and communicate, we could design environments that met our craving for sugar, salt, fat, inactivity, and pleasure. And in so doing, we remove the stress that we need from physical activity, the stress we need from having to be intermittently hungry and work damn hard for our food. That the absence of that stress is just like taking us and putting us to bed or in a weightless environment. It destroys our health very rapidly. Mm-hmm. It can't be overwhelming stress. It needs to be sort of intermittent. And helping people understand that if we reflect on this mismatch between our created environment, our cultural evolution, and our biologic evolution, then it's much easier to think about how we help people create health.
And if we're creating health, where do you think that begins? Obviously, it's different for everyone, but on a global, where does that begin?
So the first conversation that I have with my patients is I acknowledge that we're addicted to the diet and lifestyles that we have because our brain is wired to want salt, sugar, fat, and inactivity. And so we have all these products that attend to those needs. And it will be very uncomfortable to stop. It'll be very uncomfortable. So now I have to help people understand what matters deeply to you. What is your personal mission? What do you want your health for? Another really great question is, imagine a house that's just beginning to be on fire, smoke's blowing out of the windows, a little bit of flame here and there. Is there something that matters so much to you, or someone that matters so much to you? If they were in that house or asleep in that house, you would be running into that house to get them. And of course, if you have kids, most of us are like, yep, my kids, my grandkids. There might be a precious painting that mattered a great deal. There might be
an animal or
some physical object that I care that deeply about, that I might risk my life. But nearly always it's a person that I care deeply about, okay? If they don't have that, then we're gonna have to send them to some counseling to help them get something they care about. But if they have something or someone they care about, now I've got somebody to work with. So now there's something they care about, and then I can ask, what do you want your health for? And it might be because I would like to walk my son down the aisle when he gets married, or my daughter down the aisle, or see my grandson graduate from college, or, I'd sort of like to ride across this great state of Iowa on my bicycle someday, or, climb Kilimanjaro. And I encourage people actually to have a physical goal.
Of course.
Because I want them using their body.
Yeah.
So, okay. So let's work towards that physical goal. And so now help me think of the next small step that gets you closer to your goal. So it might be, I will walk to the end of my driveway every day. Okay? So that's your next goal. And then I can help them identify the next small action towards their goal. And I like to work on that from a physical activity level and from a diet level. It needs to be goals that they want and actions that they're willing to take.
Of course.
Now, because there is such demand for my services, if you want to come work with me, you're going to have to really be willing to be all in on the diet that I want you to follow. And if you're not, that's okay. But then I'd go send you to work with another one of my colleagues who might work with more intermediary steps. When I was in primary care, just starting this way, and there wasn't so much demand for my services, and I had a lot more time, then I would be very much into like, okay, well, if you want to be seeing your grandson play softball, what's the physical activity you can do? So people often getting a step counter. And then we talk about, okay, you're going to have to eat vegetables. Are you willing to eat vegetables? And some folks, well, no. I said, okay, so it's liver or vegetables. Now you get to pick. And I was like, liver or vegetables? Well, maybe I would eat the vegetables.
I know. So many people.
And they're like, no, liver's delicious.
I agree with you, Dr. Terry, but most of my clients are like, liver? No, thank you.
So they have to have my baked liver recipe. It is just so delicious. It is just one of the most spectacular meals ever.
Well, they're definitely going to have to try it. We're going to have to share it with them so we can put them on the challenge, Dr. Terry. We can challenge them to try the baked liver recipe and give us their feedback.
Yes.
But they will definitely
love
it. Yeah, there we go. So then so obviously there's diet, there's supplements or nutrition, whatever you did. Then there's other lifestyle things. Like you've obviously talked about meditation.
Yeah, meditation, mindfulness, prayer, and I have a veteran population, so plenty of my folks are hunting, fishing, gardening, just sitting outside. It's now springtime here, so I'm out planting my seeds. I was out watching my little babies come up. It's sort of ironic. A month ago, I was fussing about all the travel I was going to do in April related to my book launch. I was worried about all this extra flying and how I was going to get my garden in. And so, needless to say, I am not flying. And in fact, I had plenty of time to be working on my garden. So it was not, I admit I'd rather we not have the COVID, but we have the COVID and I got to not fly as much and I got to have my garden going. So there are always gifts.
Always.
There are always gifts for us to find.
Totally agree with you. So you obviously do movement and exercise. One other thing, like you were the one, we only have sauna space in New Zealand. What a lot of clients don't realize is because of you. You introduced Brian.
So saunas, so I love taking sauna space.
That's I see you often in your sauna on Instagram.
Yes. And Jackie says, hold that towel up higher. We're not going to flash anyone. That's okay.
When did you get into saunas? Like when did you start looking for these?
So people with MS have difficulty with heat intolerance, and I couldn't tolerate heat either. It wasn't until I'd recovered. It was about 6 months into my recovery. I knew that saunas were so good for detox. I went to a local gym and got into a sauna, and to my surprise, they're like, this is 45 minutes. I can do this. So I went out and got a sauna, and I've been saunas since 2008. Another thing that I have gotten into are vibration platforms for exercise. Yeah. That's a nice way to augment your exercise. I spend a fair amount of thinking about self-talk, the messages that we say every day. Am I calling myself stupid, incompetent? Or am I saying, you know what, I'm doing really good. I'm learning a lot. I'm adapting. I'm thinking a lot about this COVID-19 stuff. And I keep reminding myself that there are some good things that are happening. The world is probably having less carbon dioxide being emitted. We are probably having cleaner air and cleaner water in many parts of the world. We have families learning how to eat together, how to cook together. So there are, in the midst of all these challenges, there are still some really good things that are happening too. 100%.
And one more thing before I let you go. Can we touch on, because most people don't know even what it means, the word mitochondria, like that is central.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So mitochondria are little tiny bacteria-like parts of our cells that help us generate the energy from the food we eat that run the chemistry of life.
Yeah.
And if your mitochondria can't make much energy, your cell can't do its work very well. And then because our brain, our eyes, and our heart have the highest energy needs, that's what gets into trouble first. But they will begin to affect every other part of your body as well. So we want you to nourish your mitochondria really well. B vitamins, minerals, essential fats are really very helpful. A lot of the poisons, the pesticides, herbicides, and antibiotics can compromise your mitochondria. And then, the other thing I encourage people, go over to my website, terrywahls.com/diet. Download the handout. That'll give you a one-page summary on our program, and that'll get you started.
Perfect. So that's what we need, right?
That is what you need.
Dr. Terry, and show us show us again. So there's the one-page summary.
Here's the book. We have a live event that I run every year where we get people together from all over the globe, including New Zealanders and Australians, and we talk about the seminar, talk about diet and lifestyle. The challenge, of course, is with COVID-19. Traveling is not so clear, so we're converting that to a virtual event this year. So you can still get the info, but we'll be doing it virtually, just as you and I are now.
I know, but on a very selfish level, Dr. Terry, I was so excited to be coming to your homeland and turning up and getting to see where you live and where the conference is held. So I'm a little bit disappointed. I was like, darn it. I was
there'll be 2021. 2021, we'll have you.
I'm lucky to be able to come back again in 2021 instead.
Yes.
Dr. Terry, thank you so much for your time tonight, or our morning time. Thank you so much.
Lots of love to you and your fellow Kiwis, I believe, correct?
Yeah, and Aussies.
And Aussies. Okay, that sounds great.
Aussies too.
All right.
Thank you, Terry.